Okay guys, so in this video we're gonna look at creating a channel, so let's get into it. So here we can see here that I've created a bunch of channels and I can actually switch between them, and some of them have messages, some of them don't. And basically the way that this works is that I click create channel, and as we can see now everything is listed. And now this button actually takes us to a create channel like alert, and that's about it really. I can hit escape as usual, and I can also hit cancel to close it. And then finally, if I say that I put something like foobar like this and I hit create, it's actually going to create a channel called foobar and drop me right in as expected, and I can start chatting. And of course I can go back and forth like this. So yeah, that's about it really. That's all the features we've added so far. So let's look at the code. Let's close down all of this stuff for a moment and let's look at the diff. So first and foremost, I've added another event here we can see that is called show create channel, and basically when there is an event, and if that event is show create channel, we will simply, well, we're simply going to replace the current content of our alert with the value of this dispatch, which is going to be the component itself. Nothing much to there, and as you can see here, I basically moved the header inside of this component as well, and that's basically just me doing a little bit of cleaning, because now we don't really need to have the close button here as part of our of the main alert anymore, because we might want to add some like back buttons or something like that later on, but I felt that I didn't need that actually. Like I'm gonna be honest, like originally I was gonna add a back button, but I felt that hey, that's just extra work, considering that we already have we already have a escape and a cancel, and going back, there might be a use case for that. I was a little bit lazy, if I'm honest. But basically, in order to support that, this header needed to go inside of the components themselves. And because, if I'm actually going to add a back button, I don't want that to be part of the general modal, because I want the modal to be completely agnostic to what the content is. Anywho, let's look at the alerts. So a little bit of CSS here for the alerts. Nothing super fancy, but let's just go through that. And as we can see here, a little bit of boilerplate. We simply add the action and the event. And then I basically added a little bit of a, well, when we, as you can see here now, when I actually go to the alert channels list and I hit the create, because basically when I hit the create channel button, which is this button over here, when I hit this button, I want this event to fire. And if we just look at that markup for a moment, you'll see now that the header section is actually moved into this component. And if we look at this button here, we see that, hey, on click alert channels list, create channel, that's going to be fired, and that's going to go get us over here. So this is going to fire. We're going to prevent the default behavior. We're going to instantiate a instance of the create channel component. We're going to create that element, and then we're simply going to dispatch it to the alert, or to the alert component, and then that's going to render it into the content area as previously seen. Yeah, and that's about it. And here is our create channels component, and all it does, it has a few handlers: create channel, on submit, and on key up. And if we look at the markup, there's a bit of markup over here with some arbitrary text, all that good stuff. And if we actually submit it, we have an on submit handler, and then we also have a close, which is just going to go to the alert modal component and just call the close method on that component. So I haven't really, as you can see here, I haven't added a create channels handler for this specific thing. I actually notice now that I don't actually use this. This is actually a little bit pointless. Yeah, I'll actually remove this. Finding things that I can clean up is great. That means that there's even less for us to handle. So basically we just have the on submit and the on key up. So when we type into our box here, because if we notice that if I create the channel, you see that this button is disabled. I can't actually, and even if I hit enter here, I can't actually submit the form because I don't want to submit the form until there's something in the box. And right now, all I have to do is to add content to the box. So when the on key up fires, which is this thing here that's on the input element, all I'm going to do is prevent the default, and then I'm going to just check if there is something in the input field. And if there is something, I'm going to grab my reference to the create button, which is that button that goes green as you saw, and I'm just going to set disable to false if there is, actually a value inside of my input. And otherwise I'm just going to set it to true because I want it to be disabled until such a time that there is something inside. And on submit is going to be fired when basically when I try to submit the form. And all it's going to do is, as you can see here, it's going to check if the create button is disabled. If it is, we're going to return. Otherwise, we're going to grab the reference, which is name here. As you can see, the data ref is name for the input. So we're going to grab the field name, the value of that field, and then we're going to grab the user, and then we're going to add that user, the current user that we are on, into users in channel, and then we're going to set the type to channel, and then we're simply going to make an API call and actually create the channel on the server. And then we wrap that in a client-side model, and then we dispatch close alert, and finally we just redirect our user to the new created channel route. And yeah, and then a little bit of boilerplate here for the create channel modal, just putting it on this component on the window object so we have a reference to it. And then yeah, and this is the same thing here where I just moved the header inside of the alert direct messages list, and that's about it really. So that's all it took to create a channel, and that's this pretty much done. So let's move that to ready for testing, and then we will take a look at joining a channel.